Hey, everybody. Before we get started, I want to thank my friends at Hatch for producing this episode. You can get unlimited podcast editing and strategy for one flat rate by visiting hatch.fm. All right, let's get into the show. Welcome to Distribution First, the show where we flip content marketing on its head and focus on what happens after you hit publish. Each week, I share playbooks, motivations, stories, and strategies to help you repurpose and distribute your content because you deserve to get the most out of everything you create. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Distribution First. I'm so happy to have my friend Lashay Lewis on the show. I can't believe it took me, I don't even know, 60, 70 episodes to get Lashay on. I feel
too long.
Really feel awful about it. I should have had Lashay on a long time ago. We've been hanging out together on LinkedIn across the internet for a good long while. And so
Yes.
I'm so happy to have you on, Lashay.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So we talk a lot about, obviously, this is Distribution First. So we talk about distribution, repurposing, all the kind of the back end of content marketing, what happens after we hit publish a lot of times. And so for me, what I think is interesting is a lot of times when I talk to people about distribution, SEO is not typically what they think of when they think of distribution. What they think of is email, or they think of social media and LinkedIn. And for me, SEO, Google, YouTube, those are one of the core distribution channels. I have 3-bucket strategy that I talk about with distribution, SEO being one of those buckets. And Lashay is an expert on BOFU content, bottom of funnel, driving people in, trying to get people to conversion, and using that content and using things that people are already searching for and are already interested in to then convert them and get them to do stuff. So I think when we think about distribution, it's easy to go top of funnel, it's easy to go opinions, and it's easy to try and create interesting content like this podcast and other things. Like that's what people think about when they think about content marketing. But I think a lot of times it's easy to skip out on the good stuff at the bottom. So I'm curious, why start at the bottom? I guess let's go there. Why start bottom of funnel to begin with versus, hey, I'm just trying to get my name out there. I'm trying to build this company. I'm trying to do this stuff. What's your reasoning behind that?
The biggest reason is going to be the goals of the company, right? So depending on the goals of the company is going to determine where you start. So if a company is more interested in brand awareness or thought leadership or things like that, typically that's when you start more at the top of the funnel. And then if they're interested in, okay, I need conversions, I need demos, I need signups, that's when you start at the bottom of the funnel. So it really depends on the company's goals. But specifically for me, why I like to start bottom of funnel, because it's very easy for me to show my value, because bottom of funnel is usually that last touch point before conversion. So it's not difficult. Well, I say that lightly. It's not too difficult for me to track, but you have to, as opposed to somebody starting at the top of the funnel, and we're talking about enterprise software, sales cycles could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months plus. If you think you're going to follow that person for 3 to 6 months and figure out every little touch point they did, sad to tell you, that's probably not going to happen. Versus BOFU, they come into an article, they read it, they like it, and they hit the get a demo button, they hit free trial button, they hit whatever that conversion point is. That's what's being pushed in the bottom of funnel piece versus, again, top and sometimes middle of funnel are more pushed toward maybe the email list or getting a free this or template playbook, something like that. But I like to start bottom of the funnel because it's easier for me to show my value as a marketer that way.
And do you think about it? I know the Chris Walker really made the whole demand capture versus demand creation, like 2 buckets. Really, do you think of it in that way of like we're capturing demand with top and middle versus really or creating demand at the top versus capturing demand that's existing at the bottom?
I do kind of look at it like that, right? Because all keywords are not built the same. And there's a big misconception, usually with in-house marketers specifically, and I'm calling you guys out, VP of marketing and demand gen leads. Usually, I'm not going to say they don't know a lot about SEO because some do, are pretty well versed in it. But the ones that aren't, they're like, okay, I found this keyword. It has 20,000 searches a month. Let's go after this one because, oh, look at all the search volume and our competitors are ranking for it and every reason in the world to go after this term. But what they're missing is search volume does not equal search intent. Those are two different things. And again, depending on your goal is going to determine which one you go after. So you can go after what is sales enablement. And that probably gets maybe like 10, 15, 20,000 searches a month, right? Versus best sales enablement software for small teams, maybe 50 searches a month, 150, not a lot, but the traffic that comes in from a term like that is going to be very, very high intent. And a lot of the time, Justin, what I find is that 4 to 5, or rather, let's say this, usually 6 to 9 BOFU articles will produce more conversions than 30, 40, 50 top of funnel articles. And I'm talking about with search volumes of 20,000, 50,000. And again, it's just that misconception of, oh, because it has more search volume, I'm going to get leads from this. I'm going to get sales from this. It's like, no, the smart thing to do, if your goal is conversions, I don't want to just make it seem like everybody's dumb. The smart thing to do if your goal is conversions is to start bottom of funnel. And bottom of funnel, it's less people in that buying pool. There's some sort of like statistic or something where it's like 3 to 5% of your market is buying. Like the 3 to 5% is in this bottom of funnel pool floating around. So it's not going to be as much search volume as something top or middle of funnel, but that intent is going to be there and it's probably going to convert more than anything else on the blog, at least from what I found. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's an odd mix in content marketing. I feel like there's a strong desire to just create a lot of things and hope those things work out rather than actually have a strategy. The more companies I talk with, the more marketers, unfortunately, that I talk with, the more I'm realizing that there's a real lack of strategy involved within a lot of marketing programs. And to me, it's like what you provide for the BOFU side is very similar to like how I think about providing a strategy around repurposing and distributing content. It's a recipe. So we can have this, you don't have to just go in blind hoping you make a good cake. Like there's an actual recipe that you can use to make a really good cake. And if you follow it, you'll be successful. It's not guaranteed that it's going to be as pretty or as nice or as good as somebody who's done it, been a baker for 25 years, but you have the strategy to make a good cake. And I think there's a huge lack of thought. Maybe it's just like you said, from a in-house, like a VP, like I think there is just maybe I don't want to say ignorance, but there is maybe some level of ignorance in terms of like what actually moves the needle versus saying like, we're going to do content marketing. That means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I think actually doing content marketing and actually having a strategy, like you said, it can be totally different for totally different teams. Are you trying to capture demand at the bottom of the funnel to drive demos now? Are you trying to build awareness and a brand and try to do that for the long term? You're probably trying to do both in reality. And that's where a lot of teams get screwed up, is they're trying to do all of it with one piece of content.
And that's the thing, right? Like one piece of content can serve multiple purposes. But again, it's like if the intent is off, it's not going to serve the purpose you wanted to. Again, if you want inbound leads and you're writing top of funnel, it's not going to serve the purpose. If you want brand awareness, thought leadership, more people in the email, more people to download this white paper. I hate white papers, y'all. And I'm talking as a millennial, as a buying millennial that's buying software. So a lot of other millennials that probably hate white papers, I don't read them. But if you have like a playbook, if you have templates or things like that, to me, that's more top of funnel. It's like getting people into your ecosystem versus bottom of funnel. They've already been pre-educated, probably by your competitors too. So, right, it's like if we think about football, it's like the other team running all the way to the goal line, and then you come in for the interception and run it all the way back for the touchdown, right? Like, kind of like that's how bottom of funnel is. And I tell people all the time, it's like people look at content marketing as this black box where it's just like, oh, we're just going to throw things in it and see what sticks. It's like there's an actual strategy behind content marketing. And it's like once in-house leaders come to this realization, they're like, oh, shoot, like, ooh. And they usually come to this realization 6 to 12 months after publishing a bunch of top of funnel stuff. They come to me and they say, well, Lashay, we've been, publishing a lot of pieces and they have a lot of search volume, but we're not seeing any uptick in leads, any uptick in sales. It's like, what's the gap here? And the gap is that you're not focusing on high intent terms, you're focusing on high search terms. So again, once leaders start to understand that differentiation between the two and the value that one adds against the other, that's when they get the clarity and say, okay, we need a bottom of funnel strategy. And again, I'm not saying top of funnel is bad or anything. It just all depends on your goals. And again, if your goal is to get attributable inbound pipeline from your blog, bottom of funnel is going to be the way to go, specifically comparison pages.
And the thing with that too is you can build a strategy that isn't insane that manages both of those things and do it really, really consistently and really, really well.
Yep.
Here's a high level example of how I would think about that. There's probably 5 to 10 bottom of funnel pieces of content that are missing from 80 to 90% of people's company websites right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you created those 5 to 10, we know just by Pareto principle that 80% is going to drive, or 20% is going to drive 80% of the results. So let's just say those 10 are in that 20% of the overall. You could write 100 blogs, but we're going to just choose these 10 because we know they really work.
Yep.
And at the same time, we can do a monthly event, top of funnel, that drives and talks about all the problems that people are having. And then we can repurpose and distribute that on things like social and email. And now with literally a few blog posts at the bottom of the funnel, a monthly event at the top of the funnel that you've repurposed properly, you have an engine that's running all across the funnel that drives people toward the same things that you want.
Yep. And I think that's where a lot of leaders miss it. They're like, it's usually one or the other. They're like, okay, we're going to go extreme bottom of funnel. And again, if that's your goal, that's totally okay. Or they're like, we're going to go extreme top of funnel, but they try to go, it's like a scale. They like try to lean one way or the other and try to get that middle balance. It's like, no, in order to get the balance, you have to have balance, right? So it's like, if you do want to put together a content marketing program that kind of targets every bit of the funnel, lay it out, right? So maybe you do 2 bottom of funnel posts per month, 1 middle of funnel, and 1 top of funnel. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a blog. It could be a webinar. And again, that webinar leads them into your ecosystem. And then maybe you send them an email about a bottom of funnel post that you did that drives traffic back to the bottom of funnel post. And I found anecdotally, at least, when you're able to drive traffic to a bottom of funnel article outside, well, not even really outside of Google, because even when you run paid ads to bottom of funnel articles, anecdotally, I found that they rank better. So if you can take an asset you already own, like an email list, and say, hey, we wrote this on the best whatever for whatever, and then you send that traffic to that blog, it's possible that you can get conversions from there too, right? It's not just all Google, 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 right? It's your own assets as well. So I think that's where repurposing is really important. It's like, and I'm guilty of this too. It's like when we create bottom of funnel pieces, we're solely relying on like Google to bring in the traffic and things like that. But good bottom of funnel content should actually double as sales enablement. So it shouldn't just be sitting on the blog and collecting leads. Your SDR should have them. You know what I mean? Like they should be able to accurately convey your value propositions to a prospect on a call by looking at a bottom of funnel piece. That's how you know you have a good one, right? So it's like, again, it's not just about creating a bottom of funnel piece and putting it out there and hoping for the best. It's actually creating a strategy around it to make sure the odds play in your favor as it, results into driving inbound leads from that piece. Yeah, you can sway the odds in your favor more than not.
Yeah, the more companies that I work with and the more content strategies that I dig into, I think there needs to be more clarity for teams around intent for that content, and honestly, more conversations internally. It's easier for me now as an external resource to come into a company and see the things that I used to have to deal with internally, which is like the product team says we need to do X, Y, and Z pieces of content. And it's like, okay, you're creating that list is six things that are very similar. And
Mm-hmm.
are we going, like, there's those type of things. So it's having a strong view of the intent and seeing the intent across. One of the things I've been looking more into with folks as well is around the type of content based around the distribution channel. So for instance, really, really bottom of funnel content, depending on what it is, doesn't make a ton. So like a comparison, right? It might make sense to put that out on LinkedIn, but it probably makes more sense to rely on Google and your email list of people who are already actively signaled in some way, shape, or form that they're interested in you or they're interested in your tool, versus a channel like LinkedIn where they're probably less interested in hopping on LinkedIn to like see a tool comparison and more interested in getting help, getting information, getting a template, those more middle of funnel, top of funnel type of things. And
You have
so
a really good point with that, but let me put a bug in your ear. So for one of my clients, we've actually been publishing the bottom of funnel articles on LinkedIn, and they do really good.
you're publishing the article itself.
Not the article itself. My bad. So we take the link, and you know how it kind of like generates a preview and things like that. So not totally like repurposing in the form of like breaking down the piece and turning it into a LinkedIn post, but we'll take the article itself, paste it into LinkedIn, a little preview comes up, give it like a, description, little, and then what I find is that if your LinkedIn audience is dialed in, those tend to do well on LinkedIn too. Another thing I found is if you have a bottom of funnel piece and you're running paid ads, another good thing to do, if you have somebody that comes in middle of funnel, maybe top middle of funnel, you can retarget that person with a bottom of funnel post. Again, this works better if they've been in your ecosystem for a little while and things like that. But I find that works really well. Doesn't just work well on LinkedIn, it works well with Facebook ads too, especially if you have more of a story based bottom of funnel article. And I put this out on LinkedIn maybe like a week or two ago, how to combine SEO and case studies. When it comes to content like that, running ads to that type of story-based content does extremely well. So I would preface that. I would say it's something worth testing, but at least from what I found from working with my clients, it does do well if the audience you have on that platform is the right segment that you're trying to target. You know what I mean? So it's like if you're trying to target, plumbers, and it's like you're on there looking for, you have people, electricians and things like that. It's like two different things. Probably a horrible example, but y'all know what I'm trying to say. It's like you have to have that alignment with the followers and the audience and things like that. And it's like, this is probably getting to a whole nother topic, but that's why it's so important to focus on quality and not quantity when it comes to everything, when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to blog posts, when it comes to LinkedIn followers, whatever it is, the quality is always going to outweigh the quantity. Hence why I get people that come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, you're doing so well. Da, da, da. You have under 10,000 followers. How? Because I focus on the quality of the followers and not how many. And then from there, we kind of get into what people call vanity metrics. And I used to call them that, right? But I had to think a little bit. I said, you know what? It's not all vanity, because sometimes, well, every time you have to start at the top to work your way to the bottom, right? So even with bottom of funnel articles, It works the same way every single time. You publish the piece, it starts to rank, it starts to get traffic, then it starts to get conversions. And it's like, it's only vanity if you stay focused on that particular metric for too long. And again, it's like when people think, oh, search volume, no, it's only vanity if you're stuck there and you're like, I'm expecting for this piece to bring me inbound leads. And it's like when you see that it doesn't, that's when it starts to hit. But hopefully doing pods like this one will get it on people's radar that don't wait 6 to 12 months to know that top of funnel doesn't work for driving leads. Like,
Well,
I'm
right,
telling you
right.
right now, I can save you 6 to 12 months right now. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think really knowing the distribution channels, SEO, the intent behind why that. So, like what you brought up with LinkedIn there and using the ads to retarget makes a ton of sense because you can narrow down and target exactly who's going to see that ad. You know what I mean? You can be more prescriptive versus in an organic feed, there's no telling who or how or somebody's going to see this particular thing. And I think that's the thing where people struggle, especially with organic LinkedIn, even their emails, top
yep,
of funnel, trying to get awareness is they talk too much about themselves.
yes.
It's too much about the company. It's too much about what we do. It's too much about our products. And I think that's a little bit of the intent confusion is those people, when you go to a social channel or sign up for an email list, you probably signed up for the email list because they gave you something of value, a template, a checklist, those type of things, a white paper if that's what somebody wants. Not what I want, but maybe somebody out there wants a white
Right now,
paper.
you've heard it from
Uh,
two millennials. Companies, we don't want white papers.
no,
Like,
no,
switch that up.
no, I don't want a white paper. I want a template, a checklist, a
Yes,
buyer's guide. I
something
want something
consumable.
useful and helpful. Yes.
Yes, yes.
And again, I think that's the point. If people are creating content nowadays, you're not competing to create. There is so much content out there, it's unbelievable. And so the barrier of just creating something, even if you ranked number one, hey, we ranked number one, Vanity Match, da 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 da. Well, if that piece of content is kind of junky and doesn't actually like drive conversion and do much good, it's not like that ranking isn't actually valuable.
And I have to tell this to people all the time. And here's something really cool that people probably don't know. I've mentioned it a couple times, but I don't use any SEO tools. So when I say any tools, I use Ahrefs, but that's like for keyword research and just to kind of get a lay of the land of how things are in their specific industry. But when it comes to like on-page SEO tools and things, like I use zero tools. And again, it's because we all have access to the same tools at the end of the day. That's not what differentiates you. It's like how you solve the problem, how you connect those problems to your prospects' pain points. That's what's going to differentiate you, not the tool. So I don't use any tools. And I still tell people, I tell my clients, I'm like, ranking means nothing if you can't get it to convert. And that's like such people just don't take heed to that like they should. Again, it's the whole vanity metric thing where it's just like, remember, it's only vanity if you stay there. Because at some point, yes, you have to rank in order to get conversions. People have to see it. So it's a good leading indicator, is what it is, right? So, and again, it's like, that's why I tell companies like we focus on the customer first and SEO second. So,
Mm-hmm.
and again, this comes from working across dozens of content marketing agencies, seeing them do it the wrong way. They're like, oh, rankings this and rankings that. We got to get this reporting, the traffic numbers. And I'm like, y'all are paying attention to everything except what the companies care about, which is inbound leads. You know what I mean? But it's like, it takes a certain level of education, again, because bottom of funnel is so nuanced and it's so different than, not saying top of funnel isn't nuanced to a degree, but it's like the nuanceness comes from where the information is sourced from, right? So if you have a top of funnel piece, it's not difficult to type in what is sales enablement and find a ton of other definitions around sales enablement and things like that. And this is another thing I touched on where top of funnel content is more objective and bottom of funnel content is more subjective. Subjectivity creates nuance because, instead of going to Google and searching for the thing that you're trying to look for and compile it and call that an article, you actually have to go to internal teams and get that alignment, right? You got to talk to the product team. You got to talk to customer success and sales, and marketing brings that all together. And then that's when you have the alignment. Once you have that alignment, you can create collateral for anything. That's when distribution really revs up, that engine really turns on once that alignment is hitting. The problem is companies are trying to do strategy, they're trying to do all this stuff with no alignment. And again, it's because they're hiring freelancers to come in and say, okay, write this article on cybersecurity. And the person might not even be a cybersecurity expert or anything like that. So they're just trying to like pull things, and maybe they'll do a search for best cybersecurity software for enterprise teams. And they're looking at all the other results on Google, and they're like, okay, so I'm just going to take what they say and compile it all together with our solution as the number one solution. But that's not the way to do it. In order to create a great bottom of funnel piece, you need input from every team. You need input, again, from CS, from product, from sales. And again, sales lets you know the pain points. CS is going to let you know the benefits. The product team is going to let you know how the product works contextually in their workflow. It's like all of these things are needed in order to create a good bottom of funnel piece. And it's like, you're not going to find that information on Google. It's just not going to find it.
Well, and here's the kicker to that, Lashay. I think more and more for content marketers, like, buckle up, because that's the job now. Top of funnel is the same way. Like, and the reason I say that is because you have to have at the top of funnel where teams go wrong is no shared alignment on the POV, no shared alignment on the story, no shared alignment on the pitfalls, no shared alignment on the success, no shared alignment on the plan. All the things that would hook somebody in as to like, all the pains, all those things you tease out at the beginning of the stage of a relationship to get somebody curious enough to even want to engage with you and your company. You have to have those in alignment so that you can repeat them all the stinking time at the top of the funnel. So then people are like, oh, you guys solved that problem. You know what I mean? How often do you have to talk about BOFU content before BOFU content equals Lashay? How much do I have to talk about repurposing distribution before it's, repurposing distribution? I'm not even going to search anything. I'm just going to shoot Justin a DM and say, all right, I need help. We got a bottleneck with the repurposing. Like, can you come in and help our company do it?
And that's so important. And it's like, I know my message was starting to resonate because I got tired of talking about it. I'm like, if y'all think y'all tired of me talking about BOFU, I'm tired of talking about it. But you know what? It's like, that's when the message really starts to stick. And that's when you need to continue to push on that message. And again, it's like, when I think of content repurposing, you are the first person that pops in my mind. It's like, when people think about BOFU, I want myself to be the first person that pops into mind. Maybe I'm not the right solution for them, and that's okay. But I at least want them to come to me and say, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not the best fit for you, but this person might be maybe they do BOFU on a freelance perspective. You know what I mean? So there's space for everybody, right? So I think that's really important. And again, it's like, when these companies are trying to hire freelancers and things like that to come in, it's just like, the companies don't give the freelancers the tools they need to succeed, which was why my content marketing dashboard was born, because it really was derived out of pain, because I really wanted to work for this content marketing agency and I didn't get the chance to work with them. I didn't make the cut because I couldn't write good bottom of funnel content, because my brain couldn't conceptualize, how do you write an article but not have to do a Google search? Again, because me as a freelance writer, I was taught to find the target keyword, do a Google search, see what everybody else is talking about, and try to make it a little bit better than their stuff. And there's some truth to that. But what most freelancers do is they just compile the top 10 results and put it together and say, okay, here goes your article. And the marketing leaders don't know any better. They're like, okay, we have an article. Let's throw it in this black content marketing box and let's just see what happened, what sticks. But it's like, if you give them the necessary tools that they need, because I'm not a subject matter expert in cybersecurity, but I've worked with a cybersecurity company. I'm not a subject matter expert in career development, but I've worked with a career development company. And it's because, to me, in my opinion, like, strategists don't have to be subject matter experts in the thing. I'm a subject matter expert in BOFU. So if you give me the information that you need, and like we get the team on that, because we do a workshop where it's like I have a canvas laid out and we go through the product and the prospects and having that alignment between customer and product. So it's like once we get through that, and you would be so surprised how many teams are like, okay, so do you have like a feature benefit list? Or they're like, oh, well, this person on that team, I think they have it. So let me go
No,
reach
I
out to
would
them
not
real
be
quick.
surprised at all, Lashay.
Man, like, it gets crazy. It's like I'm on calls with whole teams and they're just like, okay, so who has this thing? Okay, y'all got this thing over there? And it's like, it's almost like an awakening. They're like, ooh, our information is scattered. And it's like, if the people in-house are having trouble getting this information, what makes you think that a freelance writer is going to be able to grab all this information? They've got other clients to deal with. They got, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I wasn't given the proper resources when I was trying to be a freelance writer to create good bottom of funnel content. So the point of the dashboard was to be able to consolidate all of that information. So if you do want to bring in a freelance writer, they don't have to be a subject. Well, they should be. That would help. But they don't necessarily have to be a subject matter expert on the thing, because you have everything consolidated for them. They can learn the product at a deep level within 2 weeks. And then from there, that's when you get them to start publishing. Even then, there's still a little bit of bottom of funnel nuance and stuff like that. But the point is, right, it's better than just getting a random freelancer and saying, okay, write this piece and just look around our website for the stuff you need. Look on YouTube. Like, no, have the collateral together for them.
Yeah. Those alignment pieces are really so key, literally across every piece of content that you create. I can't think of a scenario where you shouldn't be doing this, but it is eye-opening the amount of companies that completely skip over the the research phase,
Mm-hmm,
if you
mm-hmm,
will, to content
mm-hmm.
marketing and go straight into creating and then wonder why it doesn't work. And it's like, of course this doesn't work. Of course it wouldn't work. You're literally just speaking to people you don't know and you don't care about, even though they're your customers. It's a kind of a wild reality.
And the thing is, Justin, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So there are one of two things. Either they genuinely don't know, or they're trying to rush the process.
I
And
think it's
everybody
both.
knows it might be both. Yeah, for sure. And it's like, everybody knows when you rush the process, that actually slows you down. If you would have just take a step back and be like, okay, let's get this out the way. It's a pain, but let's get it out the way. It's absolutely necessary for what we need to do. And again, like when I work with companies, I tell them, like, this is the hardest part, like the customer research, getting the different teams together. And that's the hardest part. Once we've got that together, oh, the bottom of funnel articles start flowing. Why? Because we have alignment. Then once you have that alignment, you can take that bottom of funnel article and repurpose it into something else with the data backed evidence that it converts. How do you know? Well, because you have tracking set up, and that's probably like a whole nother tracking is a whole nother topic, because I know people struggle with that too. But if you have good tracking set up, you can see which articles are driving you the inbound leads. So if you know this does good as an article, why don't you repurpose it into an email, right? Or why don't you repurpose it into a webinar? It just gives you that data backed information that you need to take the step forward. And again, even with me and teams, it's like, they have to trust me to a certain extent because it's a lot of work up front. But again, once they get through that, and here's another thing. Usually smaller teams are have the information together much better than larger teams. Specifically like C through series A, B, maybe, but usually seed stage companies, very lean. They're just getting started. They have their information together. Teams are communicating with each other. They have cross-functional communication. It's not siloed. I've
They
worked with some
have to.
bigger companies. Yeah, it's like, right. And it's like the bigger the company gets, the more communication becomes siloed. It's like, oh, the sales team only talks to the sales team and the product team only, but why? It's like we're all trying to hit the same KPIs. We're trying to get to a specific number. Why are we not trying to help each other do that?
Yeah, it goes back again. It's internal teams and alignment. It's one of those things where, as somebody who led teams and did that in larger orgs and now working across a myriad of like the more companies you work with and work for, just the reality of like, man, people are the issue. They're the
Yes. Oh,
solution and they're the
100%.
issue. All like,
Yes.
I was talking with Ross Simmons about this, like those soft skills are going to really come back into like necessity
Oh,
for
yes.
teams to succeed. Like if you don't have the soft skills to communicate internally, to be
Yes.
able to pitch those ideas, to be able to share why, to be able to help teach people internally why and show them, like all of those things are really gonna come back into vogue for marketers, especially because I think so. This is the thing, right? Like talking through this got me thinking. Content and marketing is basically one thing now. Marketing is fueled by content in 2024.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, you can supplement it with ads, you can supplement it with other things, but you have to have content to do marketing. And in order to do the content well, you have to have all of the standard marketing operating procedure stuff, positioning, messaging, benefits, features, understanding of all those things. And you have to know your customers and you have to know what problems they have and you have to know what pains they have. And you can't just rely on the sales team or the CS team to, oh, that they handle the problems.
Mhm.
They
Yep.
handle those things. And then we're just ambiguously creating keyword content while they're down in the trenches dealing with the real stuff.
Exactly, and I think that's the big misconception with why teams beef with each other, because I feel like, and I'm not in sales, I don't know, somebody tell me, but sometimes I feel like the sales team feels like, "Oh, we're held to these certain numbers and we gotta hit X quota and we got to close X amount of people," when it's like, oh, the marketing team, they just have to they aren't really tied as close to a number. And then the marketing team, and I can speak for myself, the marketing team is like, well, hold up. We're busting our ass on this side too. Like, it's not all you guys. Like, we have to. And I think the sooner we start to realize that the job of marketing is to drive qualified leads to the sales team, our job is to make the sales team jobs easier, right? The only way we can do that is if we know from sales what the prospects are telling them. So if they're like, okay, this feature slaps and we love this, we probably know this needs to go into a bottom of funnel post somewhere. You know what I mean? But it's like, if you don't talk to the sales team, you don't know what they're dealing with. You don't know what they're struggling with. And usually when I talk to the product team, I just get like mixed reactions like, "Oh, whoa, you need my help? Oh, I didn't know that." I'm like, "Yeah, cuz you got to tell me how the product works, how it fits contextually in the workflow. It's like, give me an example. How would they use this in the day-to-day?" It's like all of this stuff has to go into the piece. The sales team doesn't always know what the product team, like these are different functions. They take different skills and you know what I mean? So it's like we all need each other for the broader vision, but it's like companies and communication is so siloed. And again, it's like, oh, well, I'm only talking to sales when there really should be like a Slack channel. When you come out with a bottom of funnel piece, share that piece to the other teams. Be like, you know what, sales, let me know if this helps you with closing a deal, right? Because maybe if that helps you close a deal, maybe we can repurpose that and put it on LinkedIn, or maybe we can do this or do, you know what I mean? It's just like data gathering and information gathering. And it's like, if you don't talk to the teams, you don't know what they're struggling with.
What's the best way to drive that? You've got the marketing dashboard. Anybody can go grab it. Like,
Yes.
I've got the dashboard. Crap. Now I got to try to get somebody on these calls. How do you facilitate? Because I think even with companies where there's good communication, we're like, hey, I can go reach out to John over here,
Yeah.
but John's busy and now my piece is stalled out.
Yeah. That was another reason for the dashboard, because there used to be a thing where I would have to hold an interview per piece. So another thing I love about bottom of funnel is that you only need a specific amount or a certain amount of information. And it's interesting because now we're like getting a little bit deep into it, but it's like bottom of funnel articles are almost repurposed within themselves. So we're talking about the same features, the same benefits, the same paint, but we're talking about it in a different context depending on the use case that we're talking about. But a lot of it is the same thing. It's just different positioning, right? So it's like once I get that core information down that I need from these teams, I take that information, repurpose it. So maybe it's like again, going back to the sales enablement, best sales enablement software for enterprise teams. Then it's like best sales enablement software for small teams. And those might have different features in them. But again, if I talk to the product team and they list all the features down, all the use cases, so on and so forth, I don't have to mess with them too much unless the product roadmap is growing and things like that. And they want to add things to this. Maybe they add a new feature that opens up a new segment. Maybe it opens up a new list of competitors. That's like the information I really need from them. But it's not like the company is updating the product roadmap every day, or we come out with a new feature every day.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like once I get that core information down from them, you really don't need them too much from there. But yeah, I think it's funny again because it's like repurposing within bottom of funnel. I use the same elements over and over and over. It's just about repositioning the elements based on who you're talking to. And when I say elements, I mean like, oh, the benefits, the features, pain points, stuff like that. But it's really all about repositioning. Yeah. You don't have to get too much from them. Just get it down that one time. And then once you have it, you have it.
Yeah, it's much more I break repurposing into two different areas, like macro and micro. Macro being like typically the larger, like thematic, the type. So in this case, features and benefits,
Yep.
pain points.
Yep.
These things you can repurpose over and over and over again throughout your
Mhm.
content, especially bottom funnel, because they're not going to change. Somebody's
Yes.
searching one thing and the next thing, like you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You actually shouldn't reinvent the wheel because the feature is the feature. What are you going to do? It's funny. One client that I started working with a couple months ago, we focused on solely bottom of funnel before we're still working through they have hundreds and hundreds of blogs that they already had
Mhm.
existing. So literally we're going through and updating
Yeah.
bottom of funnel content right now with
Yeah.
the sole purpose of driving conversion. So they're getting traffic, they're getting good impressions, all those type of things. And now we need to make sure the information is accurate, correct, has the right
Yes.
CTAs, all that type of stuff to drive
That's
conversion.
another thing. Now you got my brain running. Another thing, when it comes to bottom of funnel, because I know we talked about intent, there are two main things I see. It's like with top of funnel, I see people pushing their product too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then with bottom of funnel, I don't see people pushing the product enough.
Oh,
Right.
interesting.
Yes. So with bottom of funnel, and I'm not throwing shade to anybody, but if your bottom of funnel piece starts with, oh, in today's marketing, dust yourself off and try again, like immediately, right? Because when it comes to bottom of funnel, again, the prospect is already solution aware. So you don't need to say, oh, what is sales enablement and how can sales enablement help your team? Like they learned that already. Now they're here to see you versus competitor. They're here to see best sales enablement for use case. They're here to competitor alternative. Like that's what they're here for. And I tell people all the time, like when you do bottom of funnel, you either need to lead with pain points or you need to lead with benefits. And then those pain points and those benefits should tie back into the capabilities of the product. So it's like, again, because you triggered me a little bit when you said that. So I was just like, let me just get that off my mind before I forget. But yes, I don't see people pushing the product enough in bottom of funnel, and they don't get deep with their product. If they do have their product and other products listed, it's like a little blurb about we do this and we do that. It's like a little paragraph, but it's like you can get way deeper than that. Like get more granular. Talk about, okay, this feature solves this pain point. It has this capability. Boom, move to the next. This feature solves this. And if you have a ton of features, one thing you can do, one strategy I like to do is group your features. So if you have high level, I call them like high level benefits. So to me, saving time and saving money is a high level benefit. It's not a differentiator, right? It's just like a high level benefit. But maybe you have features that fall within these pools, right? So maybe it's just like a feature that helps you save more time and help you save more money. Or maybe there's just, and again, this usually goes for if you have a ton of features that solve multiple pain points and you don't want to feature dump in the article because that never works, y'all. Don't feature dump. If you do want to include a lot of features, you need to group them properly by a high level benefit. So again, you find the high level benefit and then you group the features under the benefit that it matches with.
Because how many sections are you trying? I mean, it's got to be around 5, right? Like nobody wants to scroll
Right.
a bazillion feature sets in there.
Right.
Like that's, and again, I think that I use an example with my client. I gave them, it was funny enough, it was a pellet grill, like a smoker to like
Mm.
cook smoked meats. And I was like,
Mhm.
what you have to do is all comes back to the intent, right? You said dive deeper into the feature, dive deeper into the why. If you wanted to buy a pellet grill, you really want to know what is good about this one, what isn't. In the reality, it's like, how much food can you put on there? How hot does it get? Does it burn? Like pros and cons, what all of those things across different models or across different machines. That's what I actually need to know. What I don't need to know is the specific, this one has a dial feature, this one has a this and that feature, this one has that. It's like, no, as a buyer, what is all the information I need to be able to make a good decision to say yes or no?
Yes. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark. And it's a whole nother thing. Some people don't even want to talk about their competitors. They're just like, oh, we don't want to bring attention to them. And I get it, right? But here's the thing. If you talk, and again, this is about talking, the cross-functional communication. If you talk to the sales team and they tell you, oh, we're losing deals to this person and that person and that person, you probably need to talk about it. Again, because people are searching for the bottom of funnel terms anyway. Just because
Mhm.
you don't want to think about it
Mhm.
doesn't mean they're not searching for it. And the only thing you're doing by not writing bottom of funnel content is you're letting these other companies control your narrative. Because you better believe if you're not talking about yourself, they're definitely talking about you. And something I caught the other day that was really, really cool on Capsule's website. So capsule.video, they do something really cool on the homepage. So they have like competitors listed out across the homepage, but it's like they list the thing that they do better than the competitor. So they say 12 times faster than Descript, 11 times faster than V, 9 times faster than Adobe. Like they're not even hiding the fact that we have competitors, and these could be competitors that they're probably fighting for deals on or losing deals too, but they're very upfront about it. They're like, boom, okay, we're faster than this person, and that person. So it's like, I would encourage people to not be afraid about talking about your competitors, because it's not like you're talking about them and you're saying, oh, this company. I mean, let me preface that too. You should not shit talk your competitors. I just want to, I just want to put that out there. Like, don't do that. The best thing to do is to explain what your competitors do well versus what you do well, because what's going to happen is the prospect or the potential prospect is going to come to the article they're going to read. And what happens is if they are a better fit for the competitor, they're going to self-select and honestly self-deselect from wasting time from the sales team.
Which people do not understand the reality of helping the buyer make a better decision and helping sales have more qualified sales
Yes.
conversations.
Yes.
And that buyers today, like you said with the competition, it made me real like, do you think they're not Googling the competition or like reading
I've said this
reading a
multiple times.
review on YouTube or like
Yes.
watching a third party give a X, Y, and Z thing about the three? Of course they are. Of course they are. They're
And
making
I've
a
said this
decision,
multiple
asking their
times. I'm like,
friends.
it's honestly a little bit dense of us as marketers to think that people aren't going to our competitors and reading about them and seeing, okay, who's the best fit. Even let's take it for consulting to a minute. When people look for bottom of funnel, maybe they come to me first if I'm the first person that comes to mind, but they probably hit 2 or 3 other people up and they're like, oh, you know what I mean? They're surveying the field. They're trying to figure out, okay, is this the best solution for us? Why are you different than the other person? And it's like, here's the thing. If you're differentiated enough in your features, you don't have to compete on price. I think that's another important thing too, because again, I work with some companies where their benefits are a little bit high level. They're like, oh, save money and save time. I'm like, no, 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 no. What's the benefit of the feature? What's the benefit of them achieving the job to be done? Right? Not just, oh, we're going to save time. And everybody says that. What data, what proof do you have to back up what you're telling them? And again, and I know you mentioned people come into the article and like scrolling and things like that. And again, that's why I think when people list their features out in the article, I believe the feature should lead with the capability or the benefit. Because again, if they're skimming and they probably have your page up and they probably have a competitor page up and they're skimming through, and just leading with capabilities and benefits is just really, really good for skimmers because it gives them a quick way to digest what you're able to do without having to read a 13 or 14-minute piece. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I wanted to.
Nobody wants to read the 13-minute piece.
Nobody wants to read it, right? It's boring. You know what I mean? And it's like they are trying to make a decision, but still, it's like they might not want to read every tiny specific, you know what I mean? So it's good to make those headers really stand out and get the point across in as few characters as possible. That headline needs to make them want to read the rest of the piece. And when I say headline, I mean like the headers, H2s,
Yes.
H3. The way you position those needs to make them want to say, oh, okay, yeah, that's my problem. Okay, let me read about this a little bit. This feature does this, for example. And that's another thing. I think people should always include contextual examples in their articles. Again, so this confused me for a long time, but the easiest way to understand like contextual examples is just to think like, once you explain the feature, say, for example, let's say, imagine if taking, and again, this is where the product team comes in because they help us understand how the feature is used contextually. That's why I said every team has to be involved in this because it's like every team has different information that has to go into this piece, but it all works together cohesively to get a conversion at the end of them reading that piece. And they may not even read that, they might just skim it because I've, seen people on Hotjar and they'll skim it, read through it a little bit, 2 minutes or so, boom, sign up for a demo, right? Because when it hits that hard, they're like, oh, okay, this is my company. Let me just reach out and see what they're talking about. And if you have alignment with the sales team, when they talk to sales, everything they read in that blog post is going to align from what they hear from sales.
Yep. Exactly. All right, we're cruising here. I want to give some folks some tactical advice, right? Like, hey, we're struggling with BOFU, or like we've got a lot of what I would maybe think are BOFU articles, but what are my steps to step in here and actually start like in the next 2 weeks, I can do these things?
The first thing I would say is to attempt to get your team together and lay out who you're talking to. So your personas, lay out your ideal customer profile, your pain points, benefits, features, capabilities. And you can get one person from each team. Usually that's how I do it. Try to get one person from each team together and come together and lay out these things, like make it like a feature benefit list and put that together. From there, I would start searching for bottom of funnel terms. And I tell people the way I like to find, well, again, we talked about this a little bit before the episode, but my brain is just like a continuous stream of consciousness. I'm going to try to condense this down to tell y'all how to do this. But the way I like to find bottom of funnel keywords is a bottom of funnel keyword usually describes what the product is or what it does, right? So start there. Another thing I like to do is something called the homepage test. If I scroll down your homepage and I can find 2 bottom of funnel keywords, usually I don't want to say they're on the right track, like they know all about bottom of funnel and things like that. Usually it's an indicator like they have a good sense on like who they're talking to and their product market fit. And that's another thing, side rant. If you do not have your product market fit, don't start bottom of funnel. It's not time yet. You got to know your value props. You have to know your competitors. You have to know where you fit contextually, all this stuff. But I would say get alignment. Again, one person from each team, or get as close to that as you can, and start doing some bottom of funnel keyword research. Again, what the product is or what it does, understand the different use cases. So, again, when you type best sales enablement software for use case, right? So start to understand your use cases, start to implement that into your keyword research. And then from there, grab my dashboard and grab but seriously, there are 2 or 3 frameworks in there that can kind of guide you and help you along with knowing where each team inputs goes in the piece. So like, okay, pain points go in a specific section that comes from sales. Benefits go into a specific. So that's what I would say. And again, if a team is like really, really pressed, I'm going to say look for a bottom of funnel specialist. I'm not the only one, right? Like, there are other people that are bottom of funnel spot. Maybe they do it from a freelance basis and different people have different opinions on what bottom of funnel is.
Mm-hmm.
I did a LinkedIn poll and I said, when you think of bottom of funnel, do you think of comparison pages? And they're like, it was almost 50 and 50, 50 yes and 50 no. And people were like, oh, well, I look at knowledge-based stuff as bottom of funnel. I look at just white papers as bottom of funnel. I'm like, I was getting all types of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So I think having somebody with a BOFU focus come in and help the team kind of drive that. Again, I use templates and frameworks because that's how my brain works. And it helps people easily conceptualize what I'm trying to do because it is nuanced. There's a huge learning curve. It's complicated. But I find that templates and frameworks kind of help people conceptualize it a little better. So yeah, that's my parting advice for people that want to start. Bottom of funnel, again, it is nuanced. But if you take the steps that I mentioned in this episode, you're going to be miles ahead of your competitors. Because again, one of the reasons that it's kind of easy to rank for bottom of funnel content, I'm not trying to make it seem my job is easy, but one of the reasons that it's kind of easy to rank for bottom of funnel content is because a lot of people don't do it right. So when you do it right, it doesn't take that much to rank. So as people start to catch on and start to do it right, it might get a little bit more competitive. But as of right now, it's not too difficult to rank for if you do what I talked about previously in this episode. Yeah, you're going to be on the right track.
Are there specific, so you mentioned like grabbing bottom of funnel keywords. What did you mean by like scrolling the homepage and seeing 2 keywords? Like what's an example of that?
You're putting me on the spot. I got to see.
Like what would you be looking for, I guess?
I'm looking for, so when I scroll the homepage, I'm looking for a bottom of funnel keyword specifically. So like, again, what the product is or what it does. So let me pull up and see if I can pull up an example. I think Drift does this really good. So if you look in Drift's like header, it says one conversation at a time, meet Drift, an AI-powered buyer engagement platform. That's a bottom of funnel keyword, buyer engagement platform, right? So that's one. If I scroll down some more, I'm seeing like a bunch of, no, they've only got one, but I know they obviously like they have
Sure.
their
I know what
product market
you're
fit.
talking about though.
You know what I mean? So it's like usually when I can come in and find that right away, I'm like, okay, they have a good grasp on what they're doing and who they are. Mm-hmm. Even if you go to Gong, right? If you go to Gong and you scroll all the way down into their footer, they have a ton of bottom of funnel keywords in their footer because they get it, right? So it's like,
I got you.
Yeah. You know, Gong versus this and best this for that. And so, and again, that's how I usually decipher quickly if a company gets it or they don't. And if they don't, it's okay. We just got to like go through the alignment steps and things like that. But yes, that's the homepage test, my own made up homepage test.
So if I feel like we've got pretty good alignment, I've gone through and done the checklist with my team, what are the first few like pieces of content that we should be thinking about making? X versus Y versus Z? Should I be focused on? You mentioned like product for X use case. Like, are there particular pieces of content that I should be thinking about driving faster than others?
Yes. Well, again, people have different meanings of what they think bottom of funnel is or what it means to them.
That's what I mean. Because if you say, oh, go create bottom of funnel, they might be like, oh, all right, our knowledge base, we've got 100 bottom of funnel pieces of content.
So to me, in my opinion, I think it's going to be the blog that you should focus on. Specifically, when I say bottom of funnel, I mean comparison pages. So best versus an alternative. And then even within that, so I heard you say versus. So you could do competitor versus competitor versus competitor. And that's a strategy I like to do as well, because what you can do is take the search volume from 2 other competitors and inject yourself into the conversation. So if it's like Gong versus Clary, and outreach is like, well, hello, what about us? You can do Gong versus Clary versus Outreach. And what's going to happen is Outreach is going to collect the search volume that Gong versus Clary was getting, but now they've inserted their self into the conversation. You know what I mean? So it's like little strategies and tactics like that that come from blogging. And again, once you kind of get a flow of the blog and things like that, and again, you don't have to publish a whole lot of bottom of funnel in order to make moves. So typically it takes 9 bottom of funnel posts, and I'm not, y'all just don't take it with a grain of salt. Typically it takes,
This is a scientific, she's done the study.
I've done
It's
this
9.
so many times, guys. Like, based on my, because I like to always preface, based on my data, it takes around 9 bottom of funnel articles to start driving pipeline. For a company I'm working with, they had a lead that had a chain of hospitals, like 70 hospitals. You know what I mean? So it's like, and the cool thing about that is that it's enterprise software. Bottom of funnel works across product led, sales led, all types of things. You know what I mean? So it is versatile in that sense. But to me, if you want to start driving inbound leads, you 100% first of all need to focus on bottom of funnel. What I like to focus on is the blog, again, because people don't do bottom of funnel correctly. So it's not difficult to come in and get some quick wins. I love quick wins, right? I love to come in and we do a piece and it ranks in 2 or 3 days. And they're like, oh my gosh, is this magic? Or like, no, people just don't do it right. So it's like when they come in and we do it right, they're like, whoa, like this is awesome. And it blows their mind that a keyword that gets 150 searches a month converts twice or 3 times as much as a keyword that gets triple the amount of traffic. It just blows their mind every single time. And I love it. I live for it.
So that's my final question tactically, because you mentioned SEO software for the teams that go in and they're looking in Search Console, or they are looking in a SEMrush or an Ahrefs or something like that, and the volume is 10 or non-existent. What's the advice to say? Because I'm sure you've
See,
seen
we could
that.
do a whole nother episode on search volume because some people might want to kill me for this, but I'm being totally honest. I've gone after keywords that have 0 search volume and it converts like crazy. And again, these tools are just an estimate of what the search volume really is. Another thing, I just keep dropping gems on y'all. Another thing, the most overlooked keyword tool is Google itself. So if you go into Google and you start typing in best, and again, I keep going back to the sales enablement example. If you type in best sales enablement software for, you're going to see the different use cases come up that people are searching for. Just because you put it into Ahrefs or you put it into SEMrush or you put it into enter tool here and it says, oh, it only gets 10 searches a month or it gets 0. You always have to take that with a grain of salt because I've written around keywords that get 10 searches a month and we were getting 20 visitors a day, right? And again, also with keywords, you don't just rank for the thing that you're trying to rank for. You also rank for permutations and things like that. So I think that plays a really big role into it too. But yes, tactically, that's what I would do step by step. Like if you're like, okay, we got to get leads in the door, we got to just, I would do that step by step. Find the alignment, find the keywords, either get a specialist to come in and help you put this together, do some more research, compile your own research, and put that bottom of funnel piece together. You usually need about 9 good pieces before you start to drive pipeline. And again, yeah, that's literally what I would do if I was coming in. That's how I do it when I come into companies, right? We just go, and it's the same process every single time. Step 1, alignment. Step 2, keyword research. Step 3, we write. Step 4, we track. Like it's the same thing every single time.
And I'm gonna throw more at you because you're here, and I'm curious what your take is on it. So you type in that thing, enterprise, or sales enablement 4, and it comes up with 7 different things. Is your plan then, again, are we writing 7 posts all for this and for that and for this and for that?
So that's tough because different clients experience different things. With one of my clients, the thing that started converting for them, hold up. Okay. So for 2 of my clients, their first converting piece was alternative. So if I had to rank within bottom of funnel, it's probably going to be competitor alternative. and then it's going to be best software for use case. And then it could be like you versus this person. And another thing about the versus is this episode is going to go on forever. Another thing about the versus is if you type in Google your company versus another company and you see G2 and Capterra and all these other review sites and you're not up there, you immediately need to write around that, like immediately. But again, because that's other people controlling your narrative. Like G2 is awesome, but I'm sure you don't want them controlling your narrative, right? You want to control your narrative. So if you see search volume that has your brand name in it versus somebody else and you do not have a piece around that, that's probably the most important. After that, then I would go after competitor alternatives. But if you're good with like your name and versus competitor, not having any search volume, nothing is there, at that point, I would start with competitor alternative, again, then go down to best software for use case, and then go competitor versus competitor.
Got you. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a method to the madness of.
Yeah, a little bit. It's some structure in this brain, not a whole lot.
Well, Lashay, it's been awesome dropping massive knowledge bombs all throughout this on bottom of funnel and how it ties in. I think the biggest thing for me, honestly, and I know we've got some cool stuff that we were chatting about before this, but I think for marketers to really understand that it truly does all tie together. It's not a segmented, siloed strategy where we're going to focus only on bottom of funnel and has no impact at the top, or I'm going to only do top of funnel, has no impact at the bottom.
Yep.
All of these things tie together. And I think building out a strategy that's manageable, reasonable, sustainable, where you can tie all those things together makes a ton of sense. And I think teams can do it. I just don't think they know how.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're here for, right?
That's what we're here for. Absolutely. So
we're here to save the day.
Awesome. Well, Lashay, it's been a blast having you on. And we'll definitely have to have you back because an hour went by like 15 minutes. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you so much.
Awesome. Chat soon. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Distribution First, and thank you for listening all the way through. I appreciate you so much. And I hope you're able to apply what you learned in this episode, one way or another, into your content strategy as well. Speaking of strategy, we have a lot of things going on this year that are going to help you build your brand, 10x your content, and transform the way you do content marketing. Make sure to subscribe to the show and sign up for my newsletter at justinsimon.co so you don't miss a thing. I look forward to serving you in the next episode as well. And until then, take care, and I'll see you next time.